Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. We go on live from New York City. I am currently sitting in my restaurant, Della, in Brooklyn. The pandemic, the quarantine has got us all asunder. We have to create space, but it's given us some opportunities. We're going to have a little fun today. We're going to shake things up and do it a little differently. Typically, I have my guest in studio in Manhattan. We sit across from a table from each other. It's intimate. It's close quarters. Not able to do that these days. So taking the opportunity to reach out to some people that otherwise would not be able to make it to New York City very easily to sit in a room with me. And if they did, it would be legal anyways right now. So what we're doing this week is a bit of a roundtable style. We have 4 segments. There's always 3 commercial breaks to every show. Every segment this week will be occupied by a different person. Our first guest today, before I introduce him, I'm going to offer you my message for the week, which relates to my guest in particular, but also just to what's happening. Prior to the quarantine as well, I taught and trained martial arts on a daily basis here in Brooklyn. And a message that was constantly reiterated there is you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Since we can't spend time with anybody, we're taking this chance here to virtually connect to some people. So we're going all the way to Alberta, Canada. I would like to welcome to the show Michael Johnson, otherwise known as Tea with Mike. What's up, Mike? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. Got my cup of tea here. Love the music intro to the show. Oh, snap. Love it. Love the
I drink coffee. So this, as the shirt says,
which is stay caffeinated is important.
Yes. I know there's caffeine in tea. This shirt is from one of our guests later on in the show who's going to open his own coffee shop sometime.
Very cool. Very neat.
So really, really pumped to wear this. But yeah, I'm more of a coffee guy than a tea guy. What kind of tea are you drinking today?
Today we have a Yorkshire tea. It's a nice strong black tea with a tiny little bit of milk in.
And caffeinated as well, yes?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, I owned a coffee shop, and coffee's always been my jam. I'm pretty much an espresso guy. I have a very nice espresso machine at home, and that's my lifeblood. But at the restaurant, I don't have a machine, so I do pour-overs.
Okay.
Are very tea-like. I like them. Actually, I like my pour-overs to taste like tea more than coffee. I like the subtleties that you get out of the lighter roast and the way you can extract that way. It's much better.
Awesome.
I have a quick tea question for you because I know you like to pump out a lot of tea facts.
I do indeed.
I make a tea basically out of roots, out of like ginger and turmeric, like fresh roots. Is that considered tea? Is tea only like the leafy beverage?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. That you don't have to answer it right now. That may be something. I didn't know if you knew it off the top of your head. That's the one I really like making a lot. It's very good for inflammation and for people like athletic people that work out a lot.
I'm sure there's lots of different types, and obviously there's lots of different styles, like anything in creation. And so a lot of people do make it from that scratch, gather other ingredients.
Yeah,
they mix stuff together. So really, it's more just almost like the creative process of how you get to the end product, which has a tea-like taste. However, that may.
So,
tea. Yeah.
What were you saying? I didn't hear you. Go ahead. Say it again.
Oh, because there's lots of different types of tea.
Yeah. So you studied digital marketing in school. Is that correct?
I studied media and communications at Red Deer College. So quite a bit, obviously, on the communication side, some on the marketing side, public relations side, history of communication, a real light broad mix.
And you have your show Tea with Mike, which is gaining in popularity. What was the impetus for starting a show? I mean, I love the branding. It's really clever and
it's really on fire. Yeah.
Not many people occupying that space. What urged you to start a show? And what's the show about? Let everybody know what it's about.
Sure. Hi guys. For those of you that are tuning in, so I'm Michael Johnson, aka Tea with Mike. I run a storytelling talk show called Tea with Mike. The input, whatever. I started the show because technology and digital having a significant, I guess, impact on our daily lives. And whilst that's important, as as related to the pandemic. We've also lost the ability to have that interaction, both face-to-face and even like this, and we've kind of lost the ability to be able to tell stories, because if you think back to our ancestors, that's how messages and knowledge was passed on through sitting around a campfire and the elder or whoever passing it on to younger generation to pass on to their kids and grandkids, etc., etc. So really, it's all been created to remind people that storytelling is super significant, and there's so many cool people in the world, and it's just a way to connect people globally and to hear about the impact that people are making in their local communities.
And you typically bring people on from all over. I mean, you're the geographic reach of what you've done has always been, I think, right from the beginning. You kind of
so it kind of started off with just people I know, and then as the show's gained in popularity, we've had lots of people reaching out. So everything from North America to England, and coming up over the next few months, we're going to be going to Hong Kong and like further reach. So that's super exciting. The show's hit 45 countries so far, so always growing, which is the exciting part.
Yeah, fantastic. And then some of the other things you do, like you sent me a website the other day of something you've been working on promotionally. Do you want to talk about some of the other things you do besides just being a, famous talk show host?
I would say I'm famous. I'm working on growing my audience to people that find it valuable. So some other things I do. I'm a big fan of the performing arts and the theater space. Professionally, I've done some work in the space, and the thing I like about it the most is the diversity and the people that you meet through that type of work, like from fringe festivals. So I've met like fire eaters from around the world, people that juggle. It's super cool. And then so there's that, and I used to do a lot of performing myself. I'm from England originally, so that's why the Tea with Mike show is kind of culturally on point. It's kind of lucky because I like tea. I'm from England, so that's the other part of the branding.
Yeah, I wasn't picking up the Canadian accent so much.
well, I'm glad, because I've been here for 7 years, and some people say I've lost the accent. So I guess it just depends.
What you have going on is great, though. It's like Sean Connery meets Darth Vader. I think it's fantastic. I went to school in Buffalo, and I studied. My degrees are all in music and performance, so I'm very familiar with the performance space as well.
Awesome.
But it was my first time living. Canada was like right across the river, that close, and I didn't realize there were like subtle inflections in the accent, and I was like, what do they keep saying? And then I was like, oh, they're Canadian. What's that all about? That was the first one.
So the coolest thing probably that I've done in that space so far is I performed on a Georgian theatre stage at the Georgian Theatre Royal in Richmond, North Yorkshire, England. Super cool. It's still creaky floorboards. It's all old, all the incredible backdrops. You're sitting in like the Queen Victoria box, and it's just a really cool, neat space. So that's pretty cool.
Fantastic. And then in terms of some of the promotional stuff you've done, like actually using your degree, and like not all of us get to do that. So it seems like you've actually executed on that a little bit. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit some of the side things you have going on?
So for context, just graduated the 2-year program. Like, let me just look at my graduation certificate. June. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the other one. Oh, so July 4th, 2019 was the official graduation date. And because employment opportunities with everything that are going on in the world right now are really tough, kind of tried to, with some influence from my parents, tried to start devising ways that I could be learning these skills on my own accord to eventually, hopefully, apply it to a real job, or maybe not to a real job. So I also just recently started doing promotions for a brand called rebootme.online. So people can check that out on Facebook and Twitter right now, or rebootme.online. It's the website. And the whole point of it, it's all about thinking differently, and through the content that's on the website in design, travel, technology, a little bit on sustainability, lots of different interesting topic areas. And the main purpose is to really like inspire people and to like kickstart their day, and just bring a different perspective on content you may not necessarily see on your average Google search, kind of filtering out the noise of the internet.
Yeah, that was, when you sent that to me, that was kind of the fascinating thing to me. And I really, that's when I was like, all right, I really want to center a show around this, because right now people need that. People need to rethink everything, the digital outreach. And for someone like you who's really entrenched in it, for me, I've been running brick and mortar businesses in the same neighborhood for like 15 years. And
which is a great accomplishment in itself, that you've managed to make it to 15 years, because as you know better than I do, a large percentage never make it.
Yeah, and they all have them in the same business, but just some have gone. I've lost some for sure. I've sold some, but the digital, it was so super locally hyper-focused that I never had any experience with digital outreach. So now people like me are looking to people like you. It's very inspirational in terms of this is a possible approach. And it was funny because I was getting pushed in that direction a little bit recently. And then, March was like, wow. And it was like, okay,
no, you need to.
You have to. And but I was already on the path a little bit, like just getting my toes wet. And I was like, whew, I'm glad I had at least, like for me, I've been doing this show for about 9 months. And I was kind of like, same thing, just kind of pushed into it. It was to highlight really awesome things that were going on, especially around where I live, and in Brooklyn and New York City in particular, and other hustlers. And now it's turned into something much bigger, but it was the same idea, I think, as kind of what you started it for. And if that hadn't have happened, I would have been much farther behind on this little journey that we're on right now. So I'm really grateful for people, like yourself and the other people that kind of spawned this for me, because I've seen other people locally who weren't on that journey, and it's a struggle. When you have the pressure of like pandemic and loss of revenue, and you have to develop like this new skill that's foreign to most of us. Like the internet didn't exist when I got out of high school, you know what I'm saying? So it's like we had to do a lot of catching up. Do you have any advice for people particularly people in that situation where maybe they're a little older, or just have not been participating in the way that would have been really beneficial right now, to just help them kickstart getting their feet wet with digital outreach, the ability to tell their story, which is a big component, I think, for any business right now?
Sure. I'll keep it real brief for the flow of the show, but
thank you.
Just kind of number one, start. If it's in your mind, write it down on a piece of paper. To kind of figure out what the best kind of medium is. Are you better at video? Are you better at written? Are you better at just the audio portion? Because I'm not the greatest on video. I'm getting better, but there's some people that have got great voice and great tone that people instantly like switch onto, and they should start a podcast like straight away. So figure out where your strengths lie and then use them. 3, make sure be consistent, do it every day, because it'll take a long time to see any progress, but you need to do it every day, otherwise you're wasting time. And then I guess finally, kind of ignore lots of people are going to have different thoughts on different directions that you should go into. They may leave some negative comments, and that can take on a variety of different forms and contexts. If you don't think it's relevant to what you're doing, just ignore it and just keep working towards your goal. And then it's kind of like a magnet. It's almost like you alluded to at the start. You're kind of the product of the five people that you spend the most time with. It's completely true. So in a nutshell, those are some small pieces of advice.
Thank you. That's really fantastic. Just before we go, I just wanted to reiterate too, I was watching one of your Instagram lives the other night, and someone came on and they were like, this is too long, Michael, you need it. And I'm like, like tell that to Joe Rogan, like the most successful podcaster on the planet. It's like, yo, man, just do your thing. I hope that cut through. I was just like,
we talked it out afterwards, and they came to realize that we're going for different goals and we have different perspectives. But it would be interesting to hash it out further on a future Instagram Live.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, we're going to have to move on to the next segment. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can find you.
At Tea with Mike on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then my other project that I'm doing promotions for, rebootme.online on Facebook, Twitter, and website.
Awesome, man. Well, take care of yourself. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Right, you got it. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Dom Jackson in San Diego. Get your tank tops on. Get ready. All right, everybody. We'll be back in just a moment. Cheers.